Okay, let's dive right into this explainer because today we're unpacking a really famous story you probably thought you knew, but which actually holds the ultimate secret to how your brain is functioning right at this very moment. We are exploring a genuinely mind-bending concept. Right now, as you're listening to me, one half of your brain is effectively trying to strangle the other half, and a Nobel Prize-winning experiment actually proved it. But you know what's even more fascinating? An ancient text mapped out this exact same scenario thousands of years before neuroscience even existed. It's the story of Cain and Abel from Genesis 4. Now, you were probably told this was the first crime in human history, right? A literal brother murdering his brother out in a field. But as we're about to see, if you try to read this literally, the whole thing falls apart almost immediately.
We have to start with the glaring, bizarre plot holes of a literal reading. Think about this for just a few seconds. First off, the creator of the entire universe apparently has these highly specific food preferences, rejecting Cain's fresh produce but accepting Abel's dead animal. But the really strange part is God's reaction after the fact. Following the murder, God shows up and asks, "Where is Abel thy brother?" Yet, literally one verse later, God says Abel's blood is crying out from the ground. He already knows. So why isn't a supposedly all-knowing, omniscient being asking a question he already has the answer to? If we're treating this as literal historical fact, the creator of the cosmos is acting like he's got severe memory problems.
And this brings us to the ultimate absurdity of the literal interpretation. Right after the murder, Cain says he's terrified that, quote, everyone who finds him is going to kill him. But wait, who is everyone? At this point in the story, the entire population of planet Earth is exactly 3 people: Adam, Eve, and Cain. Abel is dead. One of those 2 remaining people is his own mother. And then, Cain mysteriously finds a wife in this world of 3 people. And he goes off to build a city. You don't build a city for 3 people. That's just a house. So it becomes incredibly, glaringly obvious that this text is not, and literally never was, describing historical population records.
So what's really going on here? Well, the absolutely crucial takeaway is this: it is not a crime story. It's a neurological diagnosis. Cain and Abel are not historical people. They never were. They actually represent 2 entirely different modes of consciousness that exist inside every single human brain. This story is a highly sophisticated map of the 2 warring halves inside your skull right now. When the ancient texts say this murder happens in the field, wisdom traditions across the board, from Jesus in the book of Matthew to Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita, tell us exactly what the field is. The field is the world. The field is your body. The murder isn't happening in some ancient dusty pasture. It is happening constantly inside of you.
Let's put these 2 brothers, or rather these 2 modes of mind, side by side. On the left, we have Cain. His very name literally means to acquire, to possess, to fabricate. He represents the mind that grasps, the mind that builds and forges things in the material world. He's your analytical mind, the tiller of the ground. On the right, we have Abel. His name translates to breath or vapor, something so incredibly subtle you can barely even see it. Abel represents quiet awareness, the silent, intuitive mind. He keeps sheep, he tends to living things. And God rejects Cain's offering because no amount of intellectual, analytical grinding, no amount of tilling the ground can ever produce what just naturally arises from the intuitive, spiritual mind. Every single time your internal monologue fires up and analyzes instead of just perceiving, that is Cain rising up against Abel in the field of your body.
Now, neuroscience finally caught up to this ancient text in 1981. That's when a researcher named Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize. Sperry studied patients who had their corpus callosum, which is the physical bridge between the 2 halves of the brain, surgically severed. And his discoveries were just absolutely revolutionary. He found that the left hemisphere handles language, speech, math, and analytical processing. Basically, it's the half that talks. The right hemisphere, on the other hand, is completely mute. It literally cannot speak. But Sperry proved it is fully conscious. It sees the whole picture, it understands spatial relationships, and it emotes at a fully human level. So the right brain is fully alive and aware but totally silent, exactly like the quiet shepherd Abel. And the left brain, the analytical one that absolutely never stops talking, that's Cain.
But here's where it gets wild. This dynamic was brilliantly exposed by one of Sperry's students, Michael Gazzaniga, who discovered something he called the left brain interpreter. They did this experiment where they showed a chicken claw exclusively to a patient's left hemisphere and a snow scene exclusively to the right hemisphere. The patient then pointed to a picture of a chicken with their right hand and a shovel with their left hand. Makes sense, right? But when researchers asked the patient why they chose the shovel, the talking left hemisphere, which, remember, had never even seen the snow scene, didn't just say, "I don't know." Instead, it instantly fabricated a story. It said, "Oh, The chicken claw goes with the chicken, and you obviously need a shovel to clean out the chicken shed. The left brain will instantly invent a narrative to explain things it doesn't understand, rather than just being silent. It's exactly like Cain cleverly dodging God's questions.
Which brings us to the profound work of psychiatrist Iain McGilchrist. He spent 20 years researching these hemispheres, and his conclusion is staggering. He argues that the right hemisphere, our Abel, is actually meant to be the master. It has the broad awareness, the empathy, the true connection to reality. The left hemisphere, Cain, is supposed to just be the emissary, sent out to handle focused, specific tasks, categorize things, and get the job done. But the emissary rebelled. It started believing it was the entire mind, so it suppressed the master. As McGilchrist puts it, the emissary killed the master, and then built a noisy, modern civilization on its grave. Does that sound at all familiar? Because it is literally the exact plot of Genesis 4, where Cain kills Abel and then immediately goes off to build a city.
I want you to picture a massive number for a second. 200 million. That is the number of nerve fibers making up your corpus callosum, that physical structure connecting the two halves of your brain. Now, for the longest time, science thought of this purely as a bridge for sharing information, but McGilchrist discovered something pretty chilling. The primary purpose of most of those 200 million connections is actually to inhibit. Their main job is to stop the other hemisphere from interfering. So that bridge, it's actually mostly a wall. Cain doesn't just kill Abel once in some mythological ancient history. Your left hemisphere is continuously suppressing your intuitive right hemisphere every single day, right there inside your head.
Now, if this is truly a universal neurological diagnosis, we should see it popping up everywhere, right? And we absolutely do. Look at how this builds universally across human history. 6 major ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, all documented this exact same internal war. In Rome, Romulus kills Remus to build a city. In Egypt, Set murders the wise Osiris. In Greece, Apollo's cold reason constantly battles Dionysius's intuition. In India, the Bhagavad Gita describes a massive war between destructive and righteous family members, literally taking place on the field of the body. This is no coincidence. It is the fundamental human condition, perfectly preserved in ancient anatomical poetry.
Let's bring this back to modern brain imaging for a second. In 96% of right-handed people, all speech production lives exclusively in the left hemisphere. You have 2 specific areas, Broca's area and Wernicke's area, that control the narrator. This is that voice in your head that never ever shuts up. It tells you the story of your life, it categorizes everything, it judges, it constantly argues. This is Cain, the tiller, the builder, the one who always has to have an answer. Meanwhile, your silent right hemisphere is reading the room, feeling emotions that words can't even express, and taking in the entire big picture, entirely without words.
And incredibly, the physical anatomy maps even deeper onto the text. In Genesis, God warns Cain that sin lieth at the door. Well, neurologically speaking, what is that door? It's the amygdala. This tiny almond-shaped structure deep in your brain processes fear and aggression. And here's the kicker. Before you even consciously realize you're angry, your amygdala has already fired in less than half a second. Sin, or in modern terms, highly reactive emotion, is crouching right at your neurological threshold, completely hijacking your choices before your conscious mind can even intervene. Cain's countenance fell, his amygdala fired, and his intuitive mind was just instantly wiped out. The story goes on to tell us that after the murder, Cain is cursed to be a fugitive and a vagabond, and he's exiled to a land called Nod. Now, if you actually look up the ancient root of the word Nod, it literally translates to wandering. So Cain is condemned to the land of ceaseless wandering. Obviously, this is not a physical place on a map. It is the neural territory of a mind that simply cannot rest. It's an analytical brain permanently trapped in ceaseless, restless mental noise.
And guess what? In 2001, scientist Marcus Reichel named the exact modern scientific equivalent of this the default mode network. This is the brain's actual wandering engine. Whenever you aren't focused on a specific task, this network kicks into overdrive. It is entirely responsible for self-referential thought, rumination, endless mental chatter, and worrying about the future. You know that mind that suddenly wakes you up at 3 a.m. to go over your grocery list or relitigate an argument you had 6 years ago? Yeah, that's it. The default mode network is the true modern land of Nod, and tragically, it's where most of us spend our entire lives.
So the ultimate question is, how do we get out? How do we escape the land of Nod, stop the endless wandering, and bring Abel back? Well, every ancient wisdom tradition gives us the exact same instruction. Take Psalm 46:10, which says, "Be still and know." And that word still doesn't just mean to sit quietly. The root actually means to cease, to let go, to become slack.
It means to deliberately shut down all the frantic, grasping activity of that analytical mind. Because the reality is, you cannot think your way out of the land of Nod. Higher consciousness is only ever experienced through the complete absence of that analytical thinking.
And the science backing this up is absolutely incredible. It confirms that stillness, what we usually call meditation, literally resurrects Abel. Modern studies show that when you meditate, that noisy default mode network physically deactivates. Look at this timeline. Researcher Yi-Yuan Tang showed that after just 4 weeks of practice, the white matter connectivity in your brain measurably increases, so that wall actually starts becoming a bridge again. Britta Holzel proved that after 8 weeks, the amygdala, Cain's fear center, physically shrinks in size. And Richard Davidson's studies on monks with over 10,000 hours of meditation showed their gamma wave coherence was 25 times stronger than average, both hemispheres firing in perfect, beautiful unison. The brothers finally reconcile. So here is your clinical, highly actionable procedure to actually reconcile these brothers tonight. Step 1. Find a dark room and shut the door to your external senses, just like the ancient texts advise when they say to go into your closet and shut the door. Step 2. Sit in perfect stillness. Do not pray, do not think, do not ask the universe for anything, and absolutely do not analyze. And step 3, focus entirely on your breath. Because remember, the literal translation of the name Abel is breath. Every single time you return your focus away from your thoughts and back to your breath, you are literally calling Abel back from the dead.
Now, make no mistake, your analytical left brain is going to fight this. It will absolutely scream at you. It'll run through your to-do list, and it'll tell you that sitting still is just a massive waste of time. But that is just Cain desperately trying to maintain his control over the emissary's empire. But here's the beautiful truth. As long as you are breathing, Abel is not dead. You possess the literal anatomical power to synchronize your mind, to turn that wall back into a bridge, and to completely change how you experience reality. So the final thought I'll leave you with today is this. Knowing exactly how your brain is wired right now, which brother will you empower today?